But soon I had the opportunity to, this was a little bit before this, in '73 I was invited in to participate at an international, very important exhibition in Graz in Austria. It was called Trigon, Audiovisuelle Botschaften, meaning audiovisual messages. It was one of the, actually it was first European show of video art. And there I was, I had the opportunity to work with the video, to get the camera, to get, the equipment. But most importantly, I had the opportunity to meet artists, some very prominent feminist artists of the time, like Molly Export, like I've seen lots of American videos by John Jonas, by you name it. It was really important show. So this was the first kind of first moment that I came across, the idea of really feminist artists, And this was one input. The next one was very important, even more important, is the conference, the first international feminist conference that happened in Secretary Calvert in '78, a few years later. And most of the women who attended, they were scholars, were my friends. I knew them. One of them was my cousin, and they engaged in feminist thinking theory, and they started the regular lectures at the university in Zagreb, and this was, to hear my feminist, our feminist was really important, I knew. So somehow, I knew before about art practice than the theory. So I decided to think about myself as a woman, myself as an artist, and thinking how to imply, the feminist theory.
And your early work spanned across performance, video, and photomontage. Could you talk a little bit about working across various media, and also the combination of performances and videos? A little bit about the early works.
Right. Here you see my first performance, which the title was Opening, and it happened at the opening of my first big museum show. It's maybe I can just explain. There is, as you can see, this thing that goes. It was like a microphone that was connected to my heart, a stethoscope and the heart, and the visitors who were coming in the show, who were entering the show, they would hear my heartbeat. There is a wonderful essay of Ivana Bago. I hope you will read in the catalog, about this first show of mine, which the title was Documents, 1949 till 1976, 1949 being my year of my birth, and 76 was the year of this show. The performance was only one medium, I at the time I was, there was a artistic term, media nomadism. Is it? Nomadism? Nomadism, yes. Yeah. Meaning that not a particular medium, at least for me, was the one that I would master. It wasn't about mastering one medium. It was to use any medium that you find is proper to convey the message. But of course, the performances, I did a number of performances which you will not see here. In these performances, I either reflect on myself, my position as an artist, and in the other performance, this one, it's maybe not so typical, but in the other performances, I also, question the institution, the way how the audience is actually relates to myself as an artist and so on. We won't go into it.
And moving on to your photomontages, could you talk?
Right. Those were also the part of the shows. The show that I mentioned, the first one, which happened in '76. I've been working on this number of the series of the works that consist of series. That it's not one single image, but a series. Seriousness being a very popular, actually, and interesting way of dealing with images within feminist art practice, for good reason. What I was dealing here is not only the deconstructing the idea of femininity, of the influence of mass media upon the womanhood. In this one, there's a sub-context which probably you wouldn't realize, but it comes back to the political, social-political context. Yugoslavia being a socialism with, at the time, developing a free market economy. And in this particular piece, I was dealing with how the Western, in this case magazines, women's magazine, how those images influence us on the other side, So it's not only about just any advertising commercial image, but it's also about where they come from. So my private, what is interesting here, I think, is that I find out, this is a self-reflective, autocritical way of working at the time. I thought I should start from myself, and then maybe dealing with the broader issues. I find out that when I took the number of photos from my photo album, and then I paired them with the magazine shots, I find out that my photos were made before. So it's the question not to imitate or mimic, the images that are coming from mass media, which, for example, Cindy Sherman were doing, But the discovery was that we could say that I embedded the way that already present in this. So this is something you could see as in the main gallery. Okay, and
that brings us on to Triangle, one of your best known works today and most exhibited. So if you could perhaps, this is in 1979, if you could perhaps talk about Triangle, maybe also mention Triangle 2, which was made in 2005.
Which we don't have the image,
which
but you have to go to Calvert to see it.
And also perhaps moving on to personal cuts as well.
Right. It's I must say I'm amazed at how many brilliant texts were written on this piece. I did it, you would find a text that is a part of the piece where I explained what happened. It lasted only 18 minutes. 18? You should know. Yeah. Okay.
So this is the complete piece.
This is the piece that you will see. This is the afterlife of the performance, right? Okay. Well, what I was interested is to, as we were talking before, to work outside of the gallery context and to involve my own way of living, my private life. And it happens that I'm living in the building, the apartment that is on the main street, one of the streets that enter the city, and across my apartment there is this big hotel which used to be called Hotel International, then it turns into Hotel Opera, and then during transition time into Westin Hotel. Right now it's a Westin Hotel. Every time that when Marshal Tito or any big figure was coming into the town, into the city, there would be this incredible public performance going on. I mean, this ritual, people were asked to come and to cheer,
To wave flags and
to
cheer.
wear flags, and actually to be present over there as a crowd. And as a young child, I remember I loved those days because we didn't have school, so we were like about to be on the street and have fun, but we had to be there, And this whole thing was quite amazing, and there he is, Marshal Tito with Jovanka, his wife, coming into. This is the crossroad. My window is looking from this crossroad, and so I made this performance. I started. I got out to the balcony, and you still see some people here. It's part of the crowd, and I was engaged in a private activity, performing masturbation, reading a book, smoking, and so on. And what happened is that if you can see this member of security, security person on the hotel, on the top of the building. I was very well aware that the guy has binoculars, and that he must be in touch with this policeman on the street down there. And so what happens is that after 18 minutes, somebody rings. I heard a ring on my door, and there was the policeman saying that everything has to be removed from the balcony because obviously it was a disobedient act. A women's pleasure, I think it was the most problematic issue here. Not that I was being very, a woman on the balcony is not a threatening thing for security, but I think, so yeah, and you can see in Calvert, you would hopefully see this second triangle number 2, which happened 26 years later. And the issue here, one of the reasons I think I was asked, did you ever think that this piece will become so important and popular that it will survive the era? I don't have the answer for that, because I was not obviously thinking that it will become one of the important pieces. But I guess it's the question of surveillance. The question of not only power, we are dealing also with power, but surveillance. Today, it's so present that we don't notice the ideology behind it. It's natural, right? We are, there are cameras all over the place, and we just live under big eye. And
so 26 years later, a lot of the same things happen, except that.
Even more. There were snipers on the roof. When George Bush was coming. We were not supposed to be not on the balcony. It was closed, but even not behind the windows. It was like we were told a week before that it's not allowed.
And during Tito's time, people were on the streets cheering and waving flags, and when international European leaders are coming, the street is completely empty, isn't it? There's no one there other than security.
Yeah, you will see it on the photos. Of course, nobody ever now these days will come and cheer,
or be allowed to.
George Bush.
And you are unable to get through to the police or to the
anyone
because
that's another thing.
mobile phone signals.
With democracy, we are free to get in touch with government, with Ministry of Culture, with police station. But actually, I was not allowed to because the mobile phone didn't work for security reasons. So this kind of performance, or the work I'm presenting now the work is called Triangle because, as I explained, there is this communication channel between me, the guy on the top, and the policeman, and so that's why I call it Triangle. but it consists of these 4 photos and text.
And just moving on to personal cuts, which is work made in the same
year.
era. Yeah.
Mhm. So this, you can see it in Calvert again. I think the only, I will not talk too much about it, but I think it's interesting that it was shown on national television. So at the time when there are not many places in Europe where artists can work on the national, in the studio, the real studio. There we should skip probably this other video, which is just I recorded. It's not made by me. It was just recording during the last missiles that were launched on Zagreb during the Yugoslav war, and I think it's very interesting because for me it was interesting. It was kind of paradigmatic for this time, where fiction is even more real than the reality which is going around. I think we should a little bit hurry, speed up.
Well, yeah, perhaps you could talk about your collaboration, because during this difficult period of the wars, you were very much turning to collaborations with local NGOs.
Yeah, the war changed everything. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to live through. I really started to question, my position as an artist, my art as such, I mean, the activity that it's useless in a way, and, facing this horrible, events happening around me. And I started to be active, I started to help, the women's groups which were founded during the war, and which were really extremely important in cases dealing with refugees, because the feminist groups were not nationalistic, they didn't care about the ethnicity, and which unfortunately during the war, as you know, the Yugoslavia disintegrated into new states, new national states, and the nationalist policy, became the only way of dealing with, this identity, national identity thing. And I couldn't fit in this, and then I joined the groups. And first I started to help as a designer, graphic designer. For example, this sign was made by me and became a logo for many of the groups. And this is recently taken. I think last year or 2 years ago, for the celebration of March 8th. And then I started to incorporate, and trying to find a way how to deal with the issues that were coming, were very present, but were still under the carpet. The government, for example, support of the shelters for abused women. Domestic violence. The violence became really, extremely, present, whatever, after the war, because this was, the idea of militarism, the weapons and everything that reflected on the life of the women. Yeah. So the violence really was extremely present, and there is still not support for shelters, for abused women. Women's organization actually, the first one was Quoted Space, and they started on their own, to run the shelter. And I started to collaborate and develop this work, which I called Women's House. And it's a work in progress that I started in 1988, and it's happening. From time to time, I'm still invited to work on this project in different places. I've been doing with the women in shelter first in Zagreb, then in Luxembourg, then in Pristina, then in Bangkok, in Midland, and it's a very rewarding experience. It still is for me, and I hope for this union too. what we were doing is I developed this. It was really challenging how to develop the way that those women were not just objects. You know, the work was not to illustrate, you know, how they are living or the violence only, but how to involve them in production. And so I developed this very easy, simple way of making the plaster cast of their faces, which they themselves can do. So it's really a joint kind of workshop. You know, we do workshops, and then they write their stories. I mean, their personal stories. Then those casts were placed on as an installation, and people here, you don't see it well, there are texts on each pillar, which are the stories.